welcome. This is the all 12 signs video series for Mercury going retrograde. This is happening in the signs of Capricorn and Sagittarius. I will be reading for Leo in this video. My name's Chloe. I work with card divination, astrology, and I channel energies through my body. It's just one of the ways that I channel. As you can see, my hands are moving around right now. This is independent of my conscious thought, drawing in energies from different dimensions to help us heal, help us clear stuck energy, and open up portals with source to get us more in alignment with our soul's frequency. Is light a form of light language? For those of you who know your time of birth and know your natal chart, I really recommend you check out the sign that falls in the first house. This is called your rising sign. This is where the ascendant is. All the signs will be linked into them being in the first house, so this is where the astrology will closely link to. However, this does not invalidate you looking at any other part of your chart, perhaps where your Mercury is. Just look to whatever sign it is, look to where it falls in your natal chart, the house that it's in, the themes of that house, and apply those themes to the messages that come through. It's as if that sign with all the connotations of your natal chart have now moved to the first house. Right, I hope you enjoy, and I'm gonna get on with reading for Leo. Leo rising. How you doing, Leo? For those of you who are tapping into the Leo energy and it doesn't fall in your first house, look to the house that it does fall in your natal chart, look to the themes of that house and apply those themes to the messages that come through. It's as if that Leo energy with all the connotations of your natal chart, celestial bodies, astrological points, and the themes of the house have now all moved to the first house. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. So this is a bit of a complicated transit because Mercury is retrograding in two signs, so we're dealing with two different signs, two different houses. So I've got a lot to say. I'm going to be speaking probably quite fast. I do apologize, guys, but I'm trying to get these out in a good enough time and not be too long, because I appreciate your time and your energy. Right, so I will be, what was I going to say? Oh my goodness, my brain today. There's a lot. Okay, that's it. Thank you. That all the dates, all the degrees, I'll be writing down the major aspects that Mercury's making on these pivot points throughout its cycle. They'll all be in the description box. So there's a lot of information, so you can go and look at that and then revisit it and sort of have a deeper understanding of what's going on. And so that's all going to be in the description box. So Leo, regardless of whether Leo is your rising sign, this retrograde is instigating in the sign of Capricorn. Now, Capricorn and Leo are what's called in conjunct one another. They are operating with 6 different energies, okay? So they've got nothing traditionally in common. Leo, you are fixed fire. You are yang in nature, yang day in nature. Capricorn is cardinal earth, and hello, Leo. Capricorn is cardinal earth and it's yin night in nature. So we've got 6 competing energies, and this in conjunct can feel a bit discombobulating. It can be a bit crossed wires, not necessarily understanding one another, a bit frustrating. However, once you sort of realize that you're actually dealing with 6 different energies, and of course that's going to be a little bit like herding cats with the energy, then you can make peace with it. And actually, so the way that I like to describe it is, and it's kind of showing my age, I don't know if kids still do this, hopping on one leg, moving your hand around in a circle on your belly and patting your head with the other hand. Now, we actually really struggle with multitasking, and this can be, some people are really good at this, and I was always very jealous because I'm a bit, I've got what's called cross-lateral thinking. I don't have a dominant side of the brain, and my eyes don't work together, so my ability to sort of do that kind of thing with my physical body is a bit of a struggle bus. Once you do practice it, though, sometimes it takes a lot of practice, and once you do, you then start setting off different neural pathways in your brain, right? So with an in conjunct, it's not a traditional aspect, so it's not as easy or free-flowing or understandable. But once you crack the code, this is when you start getting innovative. I love an in conjunct. This is when you start getting inventive. You're breaking outside of conformity. You're using 6 different energies to create magic, guys. It's phenomenal, but it does take a little bit of work. Okay, so that's where Mercury is instigating this in conjunct. And then it's moving into the sign of Sagittarius, which is a fellow fire sign. So you're going from a slightly difficult aspect, a discombobulating, frustrating, but also wonderful aspect, and then moving into a trine, right? Trine is an aspect of Jupiter. You have 2 out of the 3 main things in common with one another. You're both yang in nature, you're both fire, but you're coming at it from different modalities. Leo, you're fixed. Sagittarius is mutable. So this is when the inspiration, the wisdom, the deeper knowing, the sense of cohesion come in. That is a trine, because you're understanding each other very quickly from the different modalities, from the different ways of doing things, because you've got that baseline of the yang day energy and then the fire element. You're only really working with 2 separate energies here, but they're coming at it from different perspectives, and Jupiter likes to broaden. Wisdom is all about perspectives and engaging in lots of different perspectives and not being narrow. It's expansive. It's able to hold the whole of the solar system within it, right? It's not about separating. So trine aspect very positively to your Leo energy. So you're moving from a discombobulation but also very maverick energy to a trine, which is providing wisdom and support in mutable signs. So the cardinal of the Capricorn is instigating something, and then it's moving back into mutable, where you're adapting and finding depth and wisdom with this new unique energy that's coming through for you with this Mercury retrograde. So that's the overall energy that's going to be affecting that Leo energy wherever it falls in your chart. So the beginning of and the end of the retrograde may feel a little bit weird, but the middle part in Sagittarius is going to have a little bit more flow to it, a little bit more ease, right? It's a soft aspect. It's ruled by Jupiter, which is a benefic. So it's, it's a helping hand rather than, hey, here's this obstacle course with 5 million different parts happening all at once and you've got to run through it. Oh, goodness me. Right. Okay. Let's talk about, okay, they're wanting to do something with the deck. Please bear with me while this is happening. Sometimes I try and stop this from happening because I do appreciate your time and I do value, this is why I often talk very fast, because I want to try and get as much context over as possible so you can then make informed decisions about what's going on in your life. But sometimes the energies are just like, nah, we've got to clear some energy from this deck for a second, even though they did do a massive cleansing before I turned on the camera. Right, okay, which is proof to the fact that the Leo card came screaming out. Right, I am pulling cards. There's going to be 4 piles and then 1 bonus card. The first pile is for the shadow phase. So there's 3 parts to a retrograde cycle. The first one is the shadow phase. This is when a planet goes over the degrees. It's then going to retrograde over. We are in that right now. Oh, hello. This has come out for every reading. Deep healing, deep individuality, really shaking up and bringing some galactic energy in here. I forgot to mention, this is the final retrograde of Mercury with Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto's going to move into Aquarius. Hello, Aquarius. And it's going to dip back into Capricorn, but there isn't going to be a Mercury retrograde. This is the last one in our lifetime. Across the board, a lot of the readings have been there's been a lot of intense clearing out energy. I would say Virgo's been the only one where it's been... there's felt like a lot more confidence. That's because they've got a lot of trines going on because they're an earth element. But okay, let's carry on. So the shadow phase, which we have been in since the 25th of November. You might want to go back and look around that time to see what clues came up, because this is what happens with the shadow phase. We get clues, we get hints, sometimes it's louder than the retrograde itself. It varies, right? Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. That a lot of things show up during the shadow phase that we are then working on over the retrograde, because remember, Mercury is going over the degrees. It's going to retrograde over, so it's the first time. And so often these are things that are coming out of the shadows, right? and being revealed. Sometimes I find that we often are unconsciously, that shadow side, unconsciously working on what's going to show up with the retrograde. We're preempting it with the shadow phase. I've seen it already. In not only just myself, but people around me, the people that I work with. So that's the first pile. I'm going to talk about the astrology of all of these things in the next round. The second pile is the retrograde itself. This is on the 13th of December. So this is when Mercury is now going backwards. This is very powerful energy. This is when we get to revise, we get to revisit, we get to renew, we get to revitalize, we get to restore. Right, we're going over old territory. So I remember I went into a great depth about what a retrograde was in the Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So if you want more information about that in greater detail, go check that out. But it's essentially, right, imagine reading a book or listening to a lecture or collecting information in one way, walking somewhere new for the first time. You're downloading everything. There's a lot of information, so you're in learning mode. So that's what we're kind of doing in the shadow phase, where we're like, what's going on? And then the retrograde is like, we've been over this territory. We're familiar with it. So now is when we get depth and nuance. I love a retrograde, even though they're frustrating, because they do allow us time to pause and reflect. Another word, very good for retrogrades. Reflect and then bring depth and nuance to what's going on. Steve Jobs had a Mercury retrograde in his natal chart, and he would be fixated on making sure the nuance of it was so perfect, right? So in tune. So, it definitely terms in what they look like and how they feel. I personally find iPhones a bit weird. Why don't they have a back button? But you think about that plug of the iPhone. It's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing compared to, say, your average Android plug. Well, it depends on the company. Anyway, my point is that retrograde planets, especially Mercury, give you time to recollect information and really refine the information that you have. You're in contemplation mode rather than learning mode, which means you get to explore it on a very individual, unique space rather than like rushing around, direct motion, go, go, go. I love retrogrades because they do give us this chance to slow down. It's often a chance for us to find things that we may have missed if we'd gone steaming ahead, which actually would have probably added on a longer trip to the whatever it is our purpose is in life, blah 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 blah. Where actually these side quests that we do with retrogrades are actually really fulfilling and actually bring depth and nourishment to our soul's frequency, that then actually free up a lot of space, and we're learning things in a different way, which means we're activating certain portals moving forward. Okay, they're wanting to click over the happy Buddha. And that making peace with a retrograde, I find, is the best policy. Just realized you got 3 major arcana. Virgo was the same as well, guys. Like, what's going on with you two? Right, so this retrograde phase, this is when we're revisiting, when we're going over things. So the stereotypical things that show up with retrogrades, this can be electronics getting all messed up. I remember the Taurus transit for me. That was in my 10th house. This phone kept stopping videos midway through without me realizing. But I'm so glad I know astrology, because I was like, okay, I can blame that on Mercury. It's not forever. It's just something's going on. It's like a 3D manifestation of the pauses, the roadblocks, the delays that we get in the deeper levels of our soul that are then recalibrating, right? It's like being ill. This is you recalibrating to a new frequency. Okay. Other things. So Mercury represents communication, technology, commerce, travel. For me, the key word with Mercury is flow. And when it's retrograde, it's not so much in its flow. But it does give us pause to unwind knots of energy that if we'd gone steaming ahead, we might not have noticed were there. And so it helps with the retrograde of Mercury being able to loosen the knots and have that unravel, which then builds more flow moving forward. It just takes a little bit more effort. Right, so if you are sending any important information out into the world, or setting out a project during finishing and putting a project out into the world during a retrograde, or a contract, please do double check, recheck, triple check. Make sure you've saved and backed up everything somewhere else. If you sent something out by hard copy, make sure you've got a copy of it. You sent an email out, really recheck to see if they've got it, because it might have disappeared, right? This is also times when people can come back into your life, whether that's friends, romantic partners, business friends, business partners, whatever it is. And I often find that this can be a mixture of vibrational frequencies. I find the most common is people coming back into your life to help you remember something that you have forgotten about yourself in a positive way, or bring back a situation that you would have previously put up with somebody, but now you're like, oh no, I've moved on. I've evolved and this frequency is no longer touching me anymore. And so sometimes it can just highlight the growth that you've gone on. And so also this can also be people coming back into your life that are part of a longer term cycle. It all really depends. There might be conversations, there may be dynamics where you've not shared information with somebody, work, friendship, romantic, other things, that opportunities show up during a retrograde for you to be able to have those conversations and actually hash things out and get to the depths of something rather than just like steaming ahead, right? So this is all positive. I love a retrograde. As I said, even though it's frustrating, you just have to be aware that there are going to be some things that aren't necessarily going to work in the way that you want them to, but it's usually redirecting, right? It's another re word. The universe is often redirecting us, where something we may have missed that we really need to focus on because it's actually going to free up a lot more space moving forwards. In terms of the contracts, as I said, right, you do what's right for you, right? I'm telling you things, you don't have to listen to any of them. Please always bear that in mind. You are the universe manifest in individual form. The more that you work on your intuition, the more that you work on yourself, the stronger you understand who you are and what matters to you, and not kowtow to what anybody else is saying to you. Even me. Right, being a bit ridiculous now, but my point is that yes, you can use these things as guidelines, but please trust your intuition, and rather than putting your power into somebody else. But with contracts, so sometimes if you sign a contract during a retrograde, there may be a clause in there that you've missed that actually turns out to be more significant later on, that kind of bites you on the ass, right? So just if you are doing these things, check, double check, double check. This is a great time for doing projects. Really great time for doing projects. Not necessarily about putting that project out into the world, because you might then have to revisit it again. But it's a great time for working on a project, going into the weeds, going into the depths of something, having the time and the patience to be able to do it. Sometimes I remember I was doing part of my course that I was doing a counseling course, and it got to the point in the end of the day where I was just like, I just want to send it now. I don't even want to check it. I'm done. You know, you get to that point of your limit, right? And so often when you do that, like you actually, what you need to do is sleep on it and then come back and revisit it. And that's what the retrograde allows you to do, because you're naturally in that space of that frequency of wanting to go through that. Rather than like fools rush in, you know. So this is a great time of doing projects, but not necessarily putting them out into the world. But again, I say that with the caveat. What, Leo? Do you see this, Leo? Do you see it? Wow. Okay. Yeah, so do what's right for you. Okay, right, so that's the retrograde. Then we are going to the third pile. These aren't in the piles, by the way. They'll all get moved around. For those of you who aren't regulars, they'll get moved around by the energies later on. Third pile is the direct motion. Now, the astrology behind this is really cool. I mean, the astrology behind all of it is always really cool. It just amazes me how did this is just astrology is just amazing. The direct motion is when Mercury stops and then starts to move forward. So this is the third time it's going over the degrees of the retrograde cycle. So this is more forward action, right? That action, everything that you've learned, everything that you've been revising, now you're able to put things into motion. So I'm using this project just because it's an easier way of looking at it. It could be a course that you're doing, learning that you're doing. This is the third time. So you're now able to implement everything that you've been going into the depths with, and finding ways of facilitating any difficulties and roadblocks that may have come up. Now we're momentum. Now we've got momentum moving forward. And the fourth pile is, I find it's not really like fully until the planet moves beyond the degree that it started the retrograde over, that things don't really kickstart until that happens. Yes, things will start to activate with the direct motion. That's definitely a thing. But like, it's not until that planet moves beyond the cycle that with everything that you've learned from the retrograde then gets diffused into you, and then the outside world momentum starts to happen. So that's the fourth pile of when Mercury moves beyond the degree that it retrogrades. It's basically, how is this all going to manifest moving forward? That's the pile. And then we're going to have a little card come out for the Cazimi. This is when the Sun and Mercury conjoin one another. This happens at midpoint of every retrograde. And so this is when this is actually happening. This is actually happening on the winter solstice, and this is a very powerful portal. I'm going to talk more about that when I do the second round and bring in the astrology in way more detail. And so this is when we get downloads from the sun into Mercury to help facilitate the rest of the retrograde, and activate a part of Mercury's cycle where it's moving from the evening star, which it is at the moment, which is more yin energy, more retrograde energy, really, where you're... Stop it, Leo. Leo, can you count the major arcana? Can you? Okay. So the evening star, this is when we're yin, we're observing, we're reflecting, we're nurturing, we're nourishing, we're strategy. It's more looking towards the past. Now this midpoint, this Kazemi point, is when Mercury then moves into being the morning star, which is more the yang energy, where it's out and forward, it's thinking of the future, it's able to implement everything that it learned during that yin period. We need the yin and the yang. There's no getting away from it. If we overload on one or the other, then we can be out of whack. Leo, be out of whack with the cycles of nature, because they represent day and night, life and right, okay, let's yes, so that I'm pulling a card, sorry. I do feel quite ridiculous. The energy I'm feeling is quite ridiculous. I'm not surprised. Look, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and then a 7. Okay, they keep wanting to put the deck down, but I'm like, it can't just be all of Leo. Right, okay, so so that I'm pulling a card for the Kazemi of like the energy that the sun is transmuting into Mercury. So those are the piles. Now let's crack on with some astrology. So Leo risings, what's going on with you Leo risings? Leo in general, this is for Leo, wherever your Leo is, this is what's happening. I can't believe that they put the deck down. I'm sorry, I'm being really quite baffled now. We'll see if it wants to pick them back up again. Right, so Leo risings, where's this happening? So it's starting off in your 6th house, right? This is the adult in the room house. This is work, health and routines. So you've got Capricorn there, which is all about commitment, legacy, long-term cycles. These houses, the signs that Saturn rule, Capricorn and Aquarius, tend to take a while to mature, but once they do, like it's a grind. It's putting in the hard work. Saturn's duty, responsibility, authority, limitations, frustrations, saying no. This is integrity, and legacy and commitment, right? So this is in your 6th house of work, health and routines, more longer term cycles, thinking about the longer term cycles of the human being and how to implement them in the way that you work. Having a 6th house Capricorn, this can be in terms of health, this can be breath work, yoga, like traditions that are linked into the human body beyond civilization, that are part of longer term cycles, collective earth energy ruled by Saturn, cycles of time, okay, and routines of like establishing a sense of maturity around routines, and but as I said, these things can take a while to mature, so it depends on how old are you, whether you've had your Saturn return or not, or just generally, like it's not until your mid-30s that Saturn rule signs really start to get activated. So I'm just saying that as a preface for those of you who might be at different stages in your cycle in this current vessel on this 3D realm. So it's Capricorn energy, it's cardinal, it instigates things, but Saturn is also a bit of a no planet. Jupiter, on the other hand, ruling Sagittarius, is a bit of a yes planet. So I love this combination. They are the outer planets. We're dealing with the outer planets here, and they are part of longer term cycles. So this retrograde is quite a powerful one, especially linked into Pluto. Hello. So we're instigating something with this retrograde of releasing old structures that don't work anymore. Saturn's also linked into foundational structures, so making sure your foundations are strong. And by instigating that and saying, no, this doesn't work anymore, I'm transmuting this energy into something else, releasing old habits around work, health and routines in order to bring in fresh new energy, and transmuting that. And we're activating it, and then it's moving, no, rewind. There's a lot going on. So sorry if I get a bit all over the place because there's lots of players, lots of pieces involved. And I want this to be as clear as possible because there's a lot going on. Right, we want to look to where Saturn is because whatever's going on with the ruler of a sign is affecting the signs that it rules. So Saturn is over in Pisces, over in your 8th house, right? This is also in conjunct your Leo energy. So very discombobulating, but also navigating, working with that Piscean energy and like creating something out of it that's actually quite maverick, really. And so Saturn in the 8th, this is the give and take between you and the outside world. This is 3D and 5D inheritance. This is the give and take of time, money, things, intimacy, all the exchange between you and something other than you. And that can be another person, a corporation, the world, or the universe, right? This is a very magical house. This is the psychic Edgar Cayce had a stellium in the 8th house, very able to communicate and give and take between him and source energy. So Saturn being there can have been restrictive, can be bringing up restrictions around what resources you're receiving from the outside world, right? And what this give and take, right? There can be limitations around that. All Saturn is trying to do, I've done 3 Saturn transit series. I recommend, if you've not seen any of them, watch the first one, more so the introductions, because I break down the bigger themes of Saturn and Pisces, Saturn with Neptune, Saturn with Jupiter, because Jupiter rules Pisces, so Jupiter's affecting Saturn. So that's why it's not as bad as when it was in Aquarius or Capricorn, when Saturn was able to do exactly what it wanted in its own lands. And then the recent one is when Saturn went direct on the 4th of November, which was activating a new cycle. Saturn's not going to go retrograde until July or end of June next year. So that will help give you an understanding of what the significance of this retrograde is about. I've also done a Jupiter transit series as well, so you might want to check that one out because Jupiter's involved with this as well. So Saturn's over in your 8th house of getting you in alignment with your own authority when it comes to the give and exchange between you and the outside world. And it kind of brought up restrictions in order to you really understand your value, really understand what it is that you're prepared to give and receive, and getting that in alignment with your integrity. So acting in the way that you give and receive from a space of integrity is a really good thing to do with Saturn being in the 8th, because then you're not necessarily going to get the hard knocks from Saturn. If you're in basically wherever Saturn is, work with your integrity, because that will solve a lot of your problems. Also, there's an element of authority, and with that integrity and knowing your own authority is bringing in your legacy, right? Bringing in your ability to navigate that 8th house in relation to your legacy, and that is all feeding into your work. So the exchange that you have with the outside world in relation to how you work, whether you're visible, whether that's seen or not, whether you're receiving resources in relations to your health and your routine, right? This can be about finding routines that are or health things that are linked into the outside world that facilitate your ability to look after your body. But let's think about this in terms of navigating the lens in which you work through. That's the 6th house. So the second is the tools that you have, and the 6th is the lens in which those tools are used. So there can be an element of making sure that this retrograde is releasing any blockages, any shaky foundations of the give and take. Perhaps you give too much, perhaps you take too much of the 8th house, that is getting you more in alignment of healthily being able to embody your work. And removing any restrictions around your visibility, around how whether you are an authority in what it is that you do, or being received by the outside world, any limitations around that. This Mercury retrograde is helping move through that and bring in a new cycle. So we're instigating sort of no to unhealthy relationships with the way that you work. Any pain you may feel about not being valued, the way that you work not being valued, any mistreatment of your physical body, like these are all difficult aspects. That's why I say it's the adult in the room, the 6th house, because we struggle to do that health routine, to put things into a routine and get things established. And this Mercury retrograde is helping clear away a lot of fears, Pluto, around this, and then liberating it and giving you the strength and the stamina to be able to do the things that you need to do in a healthy way, that's in a harmonious relationship with you and the outside world. Right, then it's moving into Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, creation energy, house of joy, house of fun, play, amusement, games, pleasure principle, creation energy. It's the things that bring you joy and a spring in your step. This can be about romance and short-term dating. This can be linked into children, literal children, your own or those that you work with. This can be creative things that you birth into the world, i.e. creative children, as well as your inner child. So there's a lot going on here, and this is ruled by Jupiter. So Mercury's moving in here, so the instigating of a healthy dynamic in the 6th house is moving into the 5th house of being mutable, right? We've got mutable Jupiter, of knowing deep within you, of your pure source creation energy that you're able to tap into. It can be very preacher mode, Sagittarius. So this desire to express yourself from the depths of the collective source energy, right? That spark of spirit that's more collective, and being able to harness that and utilize that. And so this is also activating a shift and change in any limitations around your inner child, allowing that to break free, breaking around limitations around perhaps any romance or short-term dating that have blocked your true understanding of your creation energy. I'm going to shuffle for a little bit. No, okay. I'm just amazed. Okay, they've just pushed the deck away. That's hilarious. Jokers. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so Mercury's then going to move in there, immutable. We're adaptable. We're adapting and shifting and changing the energy in Sagittarius in order to facilitate this new instigation that's happened in Capricorn, that's actually facilitating your creation energy, right? Making sure you're in healthy alignment with the way that you manifest and work in the world, that is then pouring into your creation energy and freeing up any blockages around your ability to commit to that. And so we want to look to where Jupiter is, because Jupiter's affecting Sagittarius and therefore affecting Mercury for a part of this retrograde. And Jupiter's over in your 10th house. This is your life purpose, right? And your career. Career doesn't have to be your life purpose. It's that thing that guides you. It's that North Pole. It's that North Star, the magnetic field, right? The thing that pulls you. You don't even potentially know what it is, but something is pulling you forwards. That's sort of that guiding light. And so often we spend so much time trying to figure out what that is, when actually we just got to learn to embody and sense where we're being guided and pulled. And Jupiter's there, career, reputation, how the outside world sees you. There's an element of Jupiter. I don't called Jupiter she. Interesting. That they're all masculine and feminine. It's ridiculous. I really have a struggle issuing gendering planets, because it is verging on the insane, but also not. Paradoxes everywhere. That Jupiter is in your 10th house, has been retrograde for a while, so any sort of the expansion and the abundance and the momentum moving forward that you may have thought of Jupiter being in the 10th, that's been on hold, right? When Jupiter retrogrades, you're going inwards, you're really expanding your inner space and really getting to understand what truly matters to you, what your faith is, what your sense of truth is to you, your inner expansion of wisdom and depth. At the beginning of this, Jupiter's still retrograde. It will be going direct on the 31st of December. New Year's is a cracker. It really is. Jupiter over in your 10th retrograde. So this is, let's think about the themes of the 10th house: career and life purpose, feeding into your creative energy, right? So it's really influencing what's going on. Not only is it influencing, I'll get to the aspects, right? So this is just by rulership. So we've got so much to say. Jupiter is really influencing your creation energy, your expansion of your pleasure principle in relation to where you're headed and what you're finding pleasure in your career, finding pleasure in what it is your life purpose is, finding depth and wisdom with that. Mercury is then helping shift and adapt and change and really realign the frequencies in order for that to fully flourish. Jeez. So those are the rulerships that are affecting what's going on with Mercury. Now let's talk astrology. So the shadow phase, 25th of November. 25th of November. This is when Mercury went into shadow. So this is when it entered into the degrees that it was going to retrograde over. You may have got some clues around that time that are linked into some of the themes around what's showing up for the retrograde itself. So you might want to go back and look. Anybody send you any messages? You got any downloads? You had any like visions or ideas that you wanted to then implement? Because that's all going to be part of the retrograde phase. And that happened just 2 days after the full moon in Gemini. And why is that significant? Well, there's two reasons why I'm linking this into this transit. Well, one, this was a full moon just before Mercury's entering shadow, but it's a full moon in Gemini, and Mercury rules Gemini. Just flat out refusing to... So it's a full moon in Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini, so that the influence of that full moon is affecting Mercury, and so Mercury would have received the downloads of that. If you want to go check out that series, I work with lunations in terms of the downloads that happen at new and full moons that then are part of a 6-month cycle. So even though the full moon's passed, you might have an understanding of what got imprinted into Mercury at the beginning of its retrograde cycle. The whole cycle. But another thing is that Mercury was exactly square Neptune, and this is an aspect that's going to show up later on in the reading, but at the time Neptune was retrograde, and Neptune's going to go direct on the 6th of November. So Mercury square Neptune, which for me was very much an implementation of a higher vibrational level of reality from Neptune, which for me is source energy, all the frequencies, all the dimensions, all the realities, feeding into Mercury in Sagittarius. That is then activating a sense of deeper knowing within you. You may not know the details yet, but that's unfolding. But it was retrograde. The next cycle, when they square again, Mercury and Neptune are both direct, so that's going to add on some manifestation. So that's the shadow phase. So things are would have shown up around that time that we're then now working on and moving through in order to get to that retrograde. On the retrograde itself, this is the 13th of December. This is happening 8 hours after the new moon in Sagittarius. Again, we've got a Sagittarius lunation, and obviously the retrograde is happening in the sign of Sagittarius. So that new moon is the download from that new moon is impacting what's going on with Mercury, and the retrograde is part of that cycle. So you might, with any intentions, I'm going to be doing a separate series on that. It's going to come out afterwards. You might want to with your intentions around the new moon of just acknowledge the retrograde cycle. You don't even have to have an idea of what that's about, but just acknowledge it in your intentions, because then that just isn't limiting you to the restrictions and the blockages and the limitations of that retrograde in terms of a disaster area, but actually facilitating and combining that energy and integrating it together. So on the 13th of December, Mercury is going to trine Jupiter. So this is Jupiter's still retrograde. So this is positive. This is trine, inspiration, wisdom, sense of expansion, cohesion, elevation, sense of opportunities, abundance, and luck. However, still retrograde. So this is being infused into Mercury that will then get activated later on. But it's still the reason why I talk about the astrology of what's happening on the days of the retrograde and the station direct is because these are going to flavor the retrograde itself. So this download that Mercury's getting at the time of its station is then going to influence what's going on for the rest of that bit of the cycle. So for the rest of the retrograde, we're getting support. We've got this supportive energy downloaded into that retrograde of support from Jupiter, of your 10th house into your work house. So you've got an alignment of your wisdom of understanding and expansion of your life purpose and your career that's feeding into Mercury, saying, hey, let's get this in alignment with the way that you work. Let's raise that vibrational frequency and get the health and the routine all in alignment with where Jupiter's taking you. Not only that, but with this, Mercury is making a sextile to Venus, who's going to be in the sign of Scorpio, right? This is your roots and your foundations, your ancestors, your soul family. This is the roof over your head, your parental figures, and your private life. So Venus is sextiling Mercury. So again, another benefic. Jupiter and Venus are both the benefics. Benefic aspects, trine and sextile. Very supportive, very soft, easy, inspirational energy. Sextile is very creative. There's a sense of appreciation, value, value, harmony, and love coming in from Venus, talking to Mercury and saying, hey, let's make sure this is in alignment with the strength of your foundational space, the strength of your roots, and making sure you have a sense of appreciation and love of that home life as well as work, right? Balance, 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 balance. Now, we're also having a sextile by sign with Saturn in Pisces. So we've got these two outer planets of Jupiter and Saturn. So we're in alignment with a longer term cycle, along with the clearing out of Pluto and fear and bringing in magnetism and power come in. But those two planets, Saturn and Jupiter, they rule the planets that Mercury is retrograding in, but they are also making by aspect. So we've got a double whammy of Jupiter and Saturn getting involved with this retrograde. Now, Saturn sextile with the 8th house. So this is bringing in a sense of creativity, a sense of value and appreciation of what you have to offer to the world into the way that you work. That whatever isn't in alignment with that is going to get transmuted, bringing depth, released, reinvigorated in ways that are breaking out of old cycles and bringing in new frameworks. So that is the retrograde phase. So that's what we'll be working with. There is then the Cazimi that is happening, as I said, on the 22nd of December. This is the winter solstice. This is a massive portal generally, right? For me personally, this is the new moon of the year, right? This is the new year. This is the beginning of the year. And so this is when the sun is gradually, the day is getting longer, right? It's building up the moon. If you think about the moon is getting a slither by slither by slither. And then the spring equinox is a cross-quarter moon for me. So this is a big portal. I find that setting intentions at the winter solstice and setting intentions at the Gregorian calendar work really well in tandem with one another. It's not about excluding one or the other. But when you set intentions around the winter solstice or equinoxes or the summer solstice, this is getting you in alignment with nature, with the cycles of the universe, with the physical reality that you're in. Okay, and then I'll talk more about the New Year one in a little bit. That this is a great time to set intentions anyway, but we've got the Sun Mercury Cazimi. This is when Mercury is receiving the divine wisdom from the Sun. This is when there is a sense of clarity and vision and purpose of that clear light pouring into Mercury at the midpoint of the retrograde. As I said, moving from the evening star, which is more looking to the past, strategy, nurturing, nourishment, to the morning star, which is more looking to the future and taking action. So the midpoint, we're getting some clarity about any difficulties that may have shown up around the retrograde, and then moving Mercury then being able to take action and find the information and the understanding of how to implement that moving forwards. So that's the Cazimi on the 22nd. Then we've got the direct motion. Woo! So Jupiter has now gone direct, right? Energy shift across the board. Mercury is over in Sagittarius going direct. And this is either a very early hours of the 2nd of January or quite late in the evening on the 1st. I'm going to put time zones in the description box because I think this is a great time to set intentions, to set resolutions, not necessarily immediately on the 1st, but when Mercury goes direct. Because this is instigating a forward momentum rather than looking to the past when we're still in the retrograde. So Mercury is, and doubly so because Mercury is conjunct Mars. And this is in your 5th house of your creation energy, of your pleasure principle, of bringing joy. So this energy of the retrograde is instigating something in the work house, moving into joy, and then bringing that joy into the work house. Oh, just got a ringing in my ear. Interesting. And so Mars is in Sagittarius, conjunct Mercury. Mars is independent, motivated, driven, passion, but it's that get up and go, right? With Mercury, with resolutions, your mind. What are you saying to yourself that you're talking directly to Mars to then instigate, right? Of finding the motivation and drive. This is the imprint of your resolutions. Linked into your creation energy, your pure energy of expression of individuality, your pleasure principle, how you bring fun and joy into your life, your connection to your inner child, releasing things around that, connection to birthing things into the world and finding joy in your life, right? This is a great time to set intentions with Mars. It's then going to activate it. Also, Mercury is making a positive aspect to the South and North node. It's making a sextile to the South node in Libra, in your 3rd house of communication, finding meaning in your day-to-day, your local community. of like releasing any restrictions around communication. They've just moved over to my throat chakra, releasing any barriers to finding meaning in your day-to-day, right? South Node can be quite draining, but it's refining, it's bringing depth. It's kind of like a retrograde energy, I feel. That Mercury is making a sextile, so it's finding creative ways of communicating from a place of pure creation energy, right? Finding value and appreciation in the way that you communicate from this creation energy of perhaps activating others, appreciating what it is that you have to say. Also making a trine to the North Node in your 9th house of how you see yourself in the world, your perspectives, your morals, your ethics, your philosophies, how you map yourself out in the universe, right? The North Node is striving you to really, truly understand your individual spirit and the part that it plays in the bigger outer world, universe, cosmos, reality, dimension, all of the above. And so Mercury is making a trine. Remember, these are soft, harmonious, positive aspects. We've got a lot of really creative, inspirational aspects with this retrograde. I'm loving it so much, the energy that Mercury is then getting in alignment with where that North Node is heading, right? And instigating a new ability to collect information in relation to what that North Node really wants from you, as well as influencing it, right, from a place of joy and creation energy, of making sure that's an alignment rather than the heaviness that we may feel at existing. More stuff to come. The square with Neptune. Okay, so Neptune's now direct, Mercury's direct, is making a square to Neptune. So this is an activation of that connection to source energy, that new reality that from a higher vibrational level that's feeding in, manifesting square, right? Activating into your creation energy or your joy, your pleasure, right? From the outside world, any blocks around illusions of separation and distortion away from being supported, being in a flow state with others, with the universe, is now being cleared out and being activated with this transit. Not only that, my favorite bit, strangely enough, my favorite bit is the square that we have with Juno in Virgo and the moon. The moon is in Virgo with Juno. And this is what I love about this is, think news resolutions. Juno represents commitment, your ride or die. We've got a square manifestation energy with the moon, making sure that your needs are being met, you're being nourished, your intuition is on point around your sense of value, right? Second house of how do you value yourself, the skills and tools that you have in regards to how you make money on a regular basis, your manifestation ability, harnessing that commitment to that intuition of how to bring things into being. It's then feeding into Mercury's by square that's activating your creation energy and your commitment to that and your ability to communicate and express who you are, what your spark of spirit is all about. And remember, that energy is all going to move into Capricorn, which is the lens in which those tools that you've just committed to are going to be manifest. Whoo. Okay, third pile, fourth pile, the post retrograde cycle. So this is happening on the 21st of January. And this is when Mercury moves beyond the degrees that it retrograded over. And again, it's conjunct Mars, but this time in the sign of Capricorn. Mars loves being in Capricorn. It's his favorite place to be. Mars likes getting a job done. Mars likes the strategy, right? Mars really loves, like Mars in Capricorn. You go, there's a power there that Mars really appreciates, right? It's tapping into the collective earth energy. And it's just, whew. So Mars loves being in the sixth. Mars also loves being in the 6th house. It's its favorite house to be in its favorite sign. It's exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So now we've got this Mars-Mercury conjunction again at the end. So this is Mercury feeding Mars everything that you've learned from the retrograde, and then the combination of your intention, your flow, the flow that you're bringing into the world is pouring into Mars of your motivation and drive to put that all to work, right? To put that all, to instigate your ability to find your independence and your expansive motivation and drive to implement your work, to implement health and routines into a structure where they're all working together. Love it so much. We also have a trine with Jupiter. Jupiter's now direct. So this is all feeding momentum into how you're seen in the world, what your life purpose is. If you haven't figured that out, this is going to be a great time for that all to come, like for some of the jigsaw pieces to be put together, as well as expansion of whatever it is that your career is doing, your reputation. of instigating a cycle of elevation, of opportunities, of expansion and wisdom into this Mars-Mercury conjunction that is then kickstarting and pushing out into the world. We've also got a sextile with Saturn. So again, we're bringing in that Piscean 8th house energy into alignment with your authority with the outside world, being in a level of commitment with the resources and back and forth, as well as a sense of integrity in the way that you operate with the outside world that is for fueling the way that you work, right? The more that we work with our integrity, the less we are actually clawing at what other people think or say, or whether what they give us. We are so more confident in who we are. Mars is incredibly independent, and I love that it's playing quite a pivotal role because it's bringing in a lot of activation and stimulation. We've got lots of trines and sextiles going on with all of this, and so often with those soft aspects, sometimes we can be a bit lazy and take them for granted. The fact that we've got Mars involved means that we have the motivation and the will to be comfortable and confident being able to do what it is that we need to do and put that into action. That's everything, guys. Okay, 50 minutes. I was speaking really fast, and yet that's probably the longest that I did the introduction for. Well, the astrology for. But I was speaking the fastest. That's hilarious. Okay, so I'm going to go quiet. I've said everything that I want to say, except do check out where your Mercury is, because your Mercury and the house that it's in, the themes of that house is going to get activated with this Mercury retrograde. So that's going to add on a personal level of what's been showing up for you during this time and throughout this transit. So I'm going to go quiet. We just had the Yang Day action side of the reading, the extrovert, the stimulation, the go, 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 all the information. Now we're going to have the Yin Night rest side of the reading, just a little bit. I'm going to soften my mind and go quiet. And allow the energies to move through me. They clearly didn't want any more cards, which is hilarious. They're gonna move through me. They're gonna move the cards around. They're gonna do some energy work, and then they are going to. Okay, they just wanted me to cut the deck. Interesting. Okay. They're going to move through me like they just did. They're going to move the cards around, do some energy work, and then they're going to put the cards into the piles. And then when that's finished, I will come back round and I'll bring in the tarot with the astrology. I call you to soften your mind as well, right? You just had loads of information. Don't try and force it. Let it all settle into your unconscious mind, and then see what intuitive hits come up while we have a little bit of quiet. Okay, I wanted the card from the bottom of the deck, guys, and would you believe it's another major arcana? Oh dear me, this is 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'll count them afterwards. Okay, Leo, let's begin this trip into the major arcana. Okay, I was going to count them, wasn't I? I'll maybe do it at the end. No, let me do it now. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've got 8 major arcana, Leo. Yeah, as I said, any Leo placements, this is a big, obviously Leo is getting transformed quite heavily with this transit. But I'm just thinking about how similar vibes with the Virgo reading, and that's because we're dealing with a bit of a trine. Virgo was trine and square, and you're dealing with a in conjunct and a trine. So the trine is really boosting a lot of energy shift here. We got the death card. This has shown up a fair amount in this or grief has shown up in this position. We've got the 7 of swords, sorry, and the star card. The star card, I swear, has also shown up in every reading. So the death card, this is what Virgo got. So this is sort of just an overall understanding of release. Like with that shadow phase of just being able to consciously or unconsciously understand that you're in this cycle of transformation, of releasing of things that had an authority over you. Look, see, the king is no more, right? We're getting rid of authority that is restricting you, and you're heading towards the sun, right? And so this is just an overall very powerful energy that feels like it's just across the board. You can apply it to all of the themes that I've talked about, and it's going to show up in many different ways for you. You may have already had some sort of understanding of it already, because the shadow phase started in the 25th of November, that there's an element of something that is being transmuted in quite a heavy, well, not a heavy way, but sort of it's major arcana. So it's a big impact on your in your cycle of life. They're just sort of moving over the throat chakra. And we've got this with the 7 of swords. So this is being able to think differently, right? So moving away from old authorities that have had a hold over you energetically, mentally. And the 7, I love the 7 of swords. It gets bad rep, but it's the color of the sun, right? This represents joy. And it's stealing away the 5 of the sword. So it's stealing away conflict, right? So there's an element of peace that's coming in with this shadow phase of really picking up quite quickly different ways of thinking and different ways of navigating. So you know, rather than having to work through and go over a lot of hurdles, it seems like you're already open to the change. And if I think about it, the Virgo had a Mercury retrograde in its sign. I've not done Taurus yet, so I don't know what's going to show up for Taurus. And Leo, you had that Venus retrograde. So you've already had quite intense retrograde energy in that area of your very prominent chart, especially for Leo risings, but Sun and Moon as well, or any Leo placements. You've had that transformational energy of the retrograde, and now this is the next personal planet that's retrograding. So it kind of makes sense that with the two that I've read so far of Virgo and Leo, of like, you've already, especially the rising signs, you've already cleared the decks. You've cleared a lot of the decks already. The fact that the death card has shown up for both of you in this space is like you're already on that vibrational frequency, whether you're conscious of it or not, because of those retrogrades. And we've got it with the star card. So this is, again, bringing in peace, bringing in a creative way of thinking about things. So moving away from conflict, moving away from restrictions, moving away from isolation as well, because that death card can feel like something that is gone is no more. You may have lost out on something, or something may have not worked out in the way that you wanted to, and you may have thought it's dead and buried. And this is about thinking about a different way of looking at death, of the fact that that energy, what's gone was not for you. And it's actually bringing in a new way of you thinking and navigating and understanding that. Perhaps the way that you work isn't been necessarily, I don't really want to confine it to anything. I've listed the themes that I've already talked about, but I'm getting resistance of trying to vocalize that. But it just seems just across the board, like being at peace with something and allowing this energy to transform you. And it's come as a star card. So whatever it is that you're letting go of during the shadow phase is doing deep healing, deep restorative healing, and freeing you up to be your individual self, which makes me think about the fact that Mars is playing a pretty prominent role in this retrograde of independence, right? She is unclothed. She is so removed from the layers and confines of society, right? And confident doing so. And this is about leading to hopes and dreams as well with this deep healing process. And really, okay, it's making me think about Venus. Venus will be moving into Sagittarius, which is facilitating growth of strength in the roots and foundations of your chart, which is really helping you find your transformational energy, that Scorpio energy of who you are. This is Aquarius. This could be linked into business partners, romantic partners. This can be linked into one-to-one clients, as well as intimate friends, of going through a process that may have a lot of neglect can show up in the sixth house as well as the fifth. But the sixth is kind of like, if you faced neglect in your life, you then can tend to recreate it. And the sixth house is a place of hard work. And so often it can be hard to commit to that. That it feels like there's a negating away from any external societal structures that have put certain restrictions around you. And you're freeing yourself of that in order to get back into your galactic nature. Okay, right. So for the retrograde phase, we've got the Hanged Man, very appropriate for the retrograde. It's about going inward, wisdom. Crossed by Strength, remember that was your card, first card to come out. Temperance, this is Sagittarius. This is Neptune, by the way, Sagittarius. And then we got the Page of Cups, which is very Piscean. And this is the Kazemi card of the Wheel of Fortune. So the Hanged Man, this is about pause. This is about, I always link it into Odin, the Norse god, who was upside down on the world tree for 9 days and 9 nights. You haven't quite got 9 major arcana, but you do have 8. And it was an aspect of sacrifice by changing your perspective. And at the end of it, received the wisdom of the runes, right? Divine divination. And so the Hanged Man is the only, sorry, they just put that hand over my third eye like that. Oh, got starting to throb. The Hanged Man is the only figure to have a halo. Let me hold it up with the other card. It's the only, no. It's the only figure to have a halo, which represents sort of a higher frequency coming in, and this is allowing yourself to pause during this retrograde, bearing witness to how you feel in your body, how you're responding to things. It's not necessarily direct action, it's about contemplation in order to truly understand who you are, and whether right, in regards to like work, this is drawing in the wisdom from the retrograde of embodying your work from a deeper, higher perspective, and then that creation energy of allowing pause for you to see what manifests through this retrograde. It feels like something's going to come out the other side. In fact, where is she? Birth. And it's crossed with Strength. Again, this is another limbo card, right? And this feels like this is about trying to navigate implementing love and kindness into the things that you do, both for yourself, both through the outside world, the way that you work. Because the Strength card, this is your card, she's not domineering the lion. They are working together. But it's through love and kindness that this happens. And that it just feels that there is an element of growth that's happening in this pause, in this retrograde, of you really cultivating these qualities. And it's about making peace with a lot of things as well, because that death card is showing up in the shadow phase, but it's part of the retrograde itself as well, of making peace, of releasing things that may have caused you to feel like there's mini deaths that have happened in your life. I don't mean literal people, but like certain situations may have abrupted, like death can be really abrupt, that there's a working through and navigating that through that deep healing that's allowing you to then reconnect to your love and your kindness, and like being able to embody that in the things that you do. We've also got this can also, if we're thinking about the houses, okay, so if we're thinking about the 8th house where Saturn is, there's a sense of really in contemplation of your give and take between you and the outside world, that you're recalibrating yourself to a higher vibrational frequency that allows new opportunities to come in regards to then your life purpose and your career, right? Okay, we've also got it with Temperance. This is the Sagittarius card. This is alchemy. This is refinement of self. Again, these are all kind of pause cards of, it's not like going out into the world. This is like a real high intense vibrational frequency change, right? So what was that? So the pause, the receiving some divine wisdom amalgamating that with your higher mind and your our sort of animal instinctive response mechanisms, combining those together and then alchemizing the whole thing. So we've got this angel here. If you look, the water is actually going up into the cup, so it's bringing in magic, right? But let's move away from magic. I mean, it is bringing in magic, let's be real, but it's about doing something through this alchemy process. You are then doing something out of the ordinary for yourself, right? You are breaking, okay, I don't like saying breaking the chains, transmuting the chains. You're transmuting that energy into something new, right? Because those chains, those cycles that we've been through are the only reason why we are where we are, where we've been able to get to this point of being able to transform. And that's why I feel like there's, because of that retrograde with Venus, that you've actually made a lot of peace with certain things, and that you're more confident within yourself, and have more value in yourself, that this isn't as disruptive as it could be, and it's actually really allowing you to tap into a higher vibrational frequency in a way, in a faster way. So this is alchemizing yourself, alchemizing that frequency around how you embody your work, your creative energy, your passion, your pleasure, your responsibility, your duty. It's such a wonderful combination that's in alignment with where you're headed in terms of your career and your reputation, and what it is that's the give and take between you and the outside world. With the Page of Cups. Okay, they picked up Jupiter. So this feels like this is the Kazemi card. This is what's happening on the 22nd of the winter solstice. This is fate changing. This is Jupiter's card. So whatever heaviness you may have gone through, whatever difficulties you may have gone through, you've taken them in your stride, and the energies, you've been refining what's been going on, what's showing up. Any difficulties that are showing up, you're sort of being able to take that moment with strength, to work through it with love and kindness, take that pause, and then alchemize what it is, your resources around you. And this is bringing, with the Kazemi, with Mercury moving into the morning star, of a change of fate, right? So any restrictions you may have had, especially with that Jupiter retrograde in your 10th, you may have felt some restrictions around your 10th house. Saturn being in the 8th in conjunct your ascendant, it's just discombobulating for sure. That this is saying that there's a real shift that's happening here in the way that you embody your work, in the way that you are seen and visible. Jupiter in the 10th, the give and take between you and the outside world. If we link that into the 5th house of creation energy, romance, right? The 8th house and the 7th, right? The 8th house is how our exchange on a one-to-one basis, group situation, show up, the lens in which you do so. Pisces is very boundlessness, right? There's an expansiveness, and so this can lead to like giving too much, right? And then that's just feeling like a deep connection with a lot of people, and that can Saturn's giving you structure and security in that. And so we're linking in the 5th with the 8th of like any romantic relationships that may have been limiting you are now, or ideas around that, of that exchange between when you share yourself with somebody, that is the energy of that is being shifted in alignment with where you're headed, what's truly the most your life purpose moving forward, right? So bringing in vibrational frequencies of people into your life that are in alignment with this new shift. And that can be also creative people that you're interacting with creatively, also through work as well, of like just bringing in the dynamic that's, as I said, linked into the fact that things are shifting energetically quite stupendously. Got the Page of Cups crowning it. So this is the retrograde phase of being able to see things from a space of love, from a space of curiosity. Okay, they just really like the curiosity word. Look, the page is talking to a fish in a cup. This is very Piscean energy, very fluky, very magical. Your ability to find new ways of thinking, new messages coming from intuition, coming from the space of love and space of creativity, of flow, right? And being able to go with the flow, with what's happening, and see the messages for what they are. So this is the direct motion, and I like this a lot. So this is on the 1st or 2nd of January. This is when we're setting intentions. This is the third part of the journey of Mercury going over those degrees for the 3rd time. The Lovers is all about crossroads and being able to make decisions. And this is also Gemini, so it's linked into your hopes and your dreams. So I'm thinking about how all of this is sort of saying you're getting to a space where you're going to be able to be confident making, like, not second guessing yourself on the decisions that you make or the way that you embody your work or the way that you manifest joy in your life. Like the decisions that you're making moving forward are implementing your ability to make the decisions at important moments in your life or any moment in your life that facilitates bringing a sense of union into your being, right? This doesn't just have to be romantic relationships, but as we're dealing with the 5th house and the 8th, this could very much be about this framework is instigating a new vibrational frequency in the relationships that you may have already, as well as perhaps bringing in new relationships that are more in alignment with that. But generally talking about you, this is you aligning with your masculine and feminine spirit all together with the higher perspective of this mountain, so you can then move forward with this direct motion with your creation energy, bring that that union, that combination, that creation into the way that you work from a space of with your eyes open to reality, whatever reality is to you. So get closer to reality the more that we realize that there's a lot going on that we have no idea. That this is also, again, bringing in that space of love that's aligned into your hopes and your dreams, which I really, really like, because it's such this card, yeah, for me, it's all about crossroads and being able to make decisions, right? If you think about the mythology around Adam and Eve, it was only with having a bite of the apple from of knowledge that they were then able to see things clearly, see reality clearly. That perhaps taking another bite then adds on another layer to your realities that you're able to see, clearing away of distortion. And it's come with the 4 of Wands. So this is the momentum moving forwards. This is an acknowledgement of any intentions you set around this time, of leading to an element of celebration. This feels like a milestone that you're hitting. You've put in the hard work, right? I always link this into the harvest. These people are, this is like the harvest has come in, but it's after like a year of putting in the hard work, right? Daily grind, daily routine, but then celebrating with like-minded people. If we think about the embodiment of work, of a celebration of how you work, a celebration of your creation energy as well. But it can be just personally, it could just be personally that you are able to embody this and understand the work that you've done and see the celebration, see that milestone. Or it could be other people looking in, because Gemini is also represented of friends, groups and alliances, so it could be that you're getting more recognition of the journey that you've done moving forward. That overall, this is a milestone, this is a celebration, this is a communion of the work that you've done and being able to appreciate it. You think about the visibility of the 10th house as well, of being confident in your decision making, that it's going to take you to a point of celebration. Okay. How is this all moving forward? This is the post-retrograde cycle. And we've got Venus and we've got the King of Cups. So we've got the Empress. Apologies, but this is Venus. And so Venus wants you to feel good in the 3D realm, right? She wants you to feel fertile and abundant. She doesn't want you living in scarcity and fear mindset. She wants you to be liberated. We signed up for this 3D world, the good, the bad and the ugly, and like just the fact that we sort of can take it for granted is such a thing. And I really feel with the Empress is opening up a space of not taking things for granted, of really being able to see the joy, the pleasure in the world and to be able to embody it, right? So we've got that 5th house energy coming through, this fertility. This is also can be linked into children as well, like a release of your inner child now feeling good in this world, and then that's opening up so much space for you in order to explore and play. And that play and that exploring is feeding in to the way that you work. It's getting in alignment with who you are in the outside world and where you're headed with that. Remember, this and this, they're both conjunct Mars, of being able to put this all into action. I've gone all soft and quiet all of a sudden, having been engaged with the Empress card. There is an element of fertility, of what you've laid down here is bringing about a space of abundance and visibility. we've also got the King of Cups. King of Cups is very emotionally in control. You see here, there's lots of waves in the background. There's a monster. Well, there's a sea creature. I don't know. I need to stop saying it's a monster. There's a sea creature that could be quite intimidating for this ship if they don't understand the nature of it. But essentially what this is that the king isn't being phased by what's going on around them. They are confident in their emotional resources, in their creativity, in their intuition, that they're able to take action on that. They're able to instigate and move forward from a place of sovereignty. Ooh. Well, Leo, do drop a comment in the future. Come back and let me know, because this is wild. I don't think I've ever had a reading with this many major arcana. I really don't. Not in the channel anyway. Sometimes when I'm doing personal readings, yes. Well, we've got a different major arcana. We've got the Chariot. We've got drive, determination, ambition, emotional control. Oh, you could not make that up. Emotional control, ambition, like work. We've got Jupiter in the 8th. Determination. I said, like, it feels like you're prepared to be in observation of what's going on and to use that in order to fuel you and not pull you down. You know, the Chariot is a sense of victory. It's a sense of, I love the Chariot card. In the traditional Rider-Waite, they don't have any reins, so they're not trying to control the situation. They're able to move through the world, even if it might be difficult, and know that they have the resources that they need around them from everything that they've learned up until that point. They've also got like astrological symbols and stars, so it's acknowledging the resources of the world around them. They're just sort of clicking like that around the whole of my body, right? That's movement. That's Cancer energy. Okay, let's do one more. That's great for the fact that we've got that earth energy showing up, which is in how you work and how you move through the world. We've got portal. Passageways. I love this card because I always feel like I'm going through that portal and coming out the other side with a higher vibrational frequency. So yeah, there's something going on where you're just shifting through something very quickly. Had the phrase liberate good times come on, which is not the same as celebrate good times come on, but certainly okay, they want one more. No, that's too many, guys. Pick a card. We've got the Fool, journey, progress, pathways. So we've got passageways and pathways coming out here. So yeah, a fresh new beginning, a real shake up. We've also got the Tower and the Star, but there's just, admittedly, this deck is mostly major arcana, so let's not get it twisted. The Towers come up a lot of really like acknowledging that structures have been broken down, and the Star card is saying success, happy endings, promising beginnings, potential. And with that breaking down of those structures, sometimes we've got to face that's then opening up those pathways to new, as I was saying, new pathways to come in of potential that aren't based on old cycles, but a transformation of that energy into something that is more in alignment with your soul's frequency. Right, final card, Leo. We've got forgiveness. That is interesting. I was not expecting that. Let's get another card. See if while I'm shuffling, because I'm not getting anything come to mind with that one. That one, yeah, no, I'm going to give it a second. I don't like to force it if nothing's coming straight to mind, because it's not always going to pop up. Okay, we've got parenting and forgiveness. So there might be some underlying My third eye is throbbing quite a lot right now. Some underlying releases that you're getting in that fifth house and the sixth, right? I talked about how neglect can often limit our abilities to tap into the sixth house, because we then neglect ourselves. And the inner child is obviously in the fifth house as well. So anything that may have affected the inner child comes from our parental figures. So there's clear, oh God, my third eye really is aching now. That there is okay. So in the shadow phase, whether you're conscious of it or not, there is a pulling down of structures around. You may have consciously forgiven everything already, but there may be some lingering things that are still within your energetic field that need to be transmuted during this retrograde. So that retrograde is helping liberate and break some of that stuff out. You know, that Scorpio card is your fourth house of your roots and your foundations and your parental figures, of letting go, going through that portal and letting go, finding peace, and doing some deep healing. Okay, so I'm glad we got a little bit more of some difficult cards that have shown up for you, Leo, because otherwise I'm just like, what is going on? That's just unreal. Right, I'm going to do one more, because that's all at the back end of the reading. Let's do one for moving forward for Leo. Oh, my third eye. Maybe do some third eye work. Because the third eye is our ability to see clearly, so it might be we've got loving partnership that wanted to show up. So whenever this shows up, I always like to focus on loving partnership with yourself. They've just put it over my heart chakra. But we are dealing with the fifth and the eighth house, which can link into romantic relationships. So whatever's being transmuted here, these issues around whatever may have happened in your childhood, or whatever you may be carrying on actually from ancestors or past lives that might not have even showed up very strongly in your childhood, but are still there, that may have blocked your ability to find a vibrational frequency that matches what it is that you want to give into a partnership. So this is saying, you know, the Lovers card is there as well. Like, I didn't read love into it because I don't often do that, but it could be because you're navigating this in a way that is really alchemizing your sense of self and your sense of respect in the way that you work and the way that you tap into your creation energy, your pleasure principle, rather than doing it from perhaps a superficial level. That I say that with, I am probably deemed an old lady now. That I can totally appreciate the desire to, I'm very, very sex and love positive, but there is you often then, well, anyway, I'm getting into hot water. I really don't mean to discredit anybody's behavior, but if you are being in a fluid free environment, you can still treat people with respect and dignity and honor, even if it's a casual thing. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with everyone must be married and be in a very happy, loving, monogamous relationship. That's not what I'm saying at all. But so often we can have distortions around what we're drawing towards us. I know I recreated my relationship with my father many times in relationships, and that took me a while to get to understand. Okay, so we've all got these little things, but it's just, I'm just getting the feeling with this transition that whatever, it's either elevating whatever relationship that you're already in or bringing in another vibrational frequency to help match that. But I do want to focus on this love partnership with yourself. And remember, you had 8 original major arcana, and this is a number 8, of finding a deep love with the way that you work, a deep love with the way that you bring pleasure into your own life, that is giving you a sense of life purpose in and flourishing. Okay, I'm going to shut up because longest one yet. Okay, Leo, wow, thank you for being here. Yeah, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Be good to yourself, Leo. Be good to those around you. Don't forget to do some work on your third eye and be kind to yourself.